Bullhorn Betty for the afternoon. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. Oops, I just lost my place. Maybe I probably shouldn't have a rolling. I have a rolling because I like to see all my notes. And so I have a rolling sheet that I just add my notes to every chance I get. Hey guys, it's nice to see you. Dawn, Amanda, me and you, Ashley, Nani, Clarissa. Hey honey, I hope you're doing really, really well. River's up in the house. Kendra, Hope, Beth, Outer Banks, it's nice to see you. Yeda, good afternoon. Mickey Shell, Melanie, Holly, Nani, Groovy Gal, it's nice to see you. Stephanie, True Crime Addict, Hartley, JH, Prickly Pear. That sounds like a, I don't know if anybody has noticed like some, I don't know how many people have like Spectrum or Comcast or something like that. Some of the names they come up with for the passwords for that's why I was chuckling, Prickly Pear, because it seems like it'd be like Prickly Pear 047. Sorry. I don't know why that made me laugh, but it did. Denise, Lorraine, Lisa B. Always, Football Mom, Hope is a beautiful thing. Jojo Wolf, it's nice to see you. Bobby, Vicky, hey. Busy Mama, Danielle, Sissy, Autistic Awareness Grandmother. Aw, it's sweet. Cheryl. Hey. Oh, look at that. Nani, 26 months. Good gracious, you've been with me for such a long time. God bless you. Thank you for your love and your support. Kendra, it's nice to see you. And we've already got some people in here. Oh, Bookworm's in the house. Sharon, Phil, it's nice to see you. I hope everybody's doing well. So I'm going over this. I know we made a big push, for the Texas Roadhouse stuff, but I'm looking at this and until we know more, that could really just be, a nothing burger. Meanwhile, the bombshell information that was dropped by Seth a couple weeks ago about the CPS reports is something I wanted to dive into a little bit, but not just specifically the CPS reports, kind of the effects, right? The effects, I think, is the best way to describe it. So Sebastian Rogers is a 15-year-old autistic boy that disappeared from inside his locked home, where he was allegedly only with his mother. His stepfather was 3 to 3.5 hours away in Mississippi / Memphis, because they're only 20 minutes apart, and he was staying in Mississippi but working in Memphis. And there's just some things going on that just doesn't make too much sense after the fact. We didn't really get into this case or learn about this case. If anybody wants some fresh fruit, let me know. I'll throw it to you. See, I got some fresh fruit, and then I cut it up, and it tastes really good. So after that, we didn't hear really a whole lot about this case. I know that there were things going on in that community. So their local news was running it, but it wasn't really leaving that community. It really didn't start leaving that community until, I want to say, I think March is when people started hearing about it, when the message started going out. But definitely after the Riley strain, there was a gal on TikTok, and she seems like a really nice gal. She had like, I want to say like 92,000 followers, maybe it was 62,000, I can't remember at this point. And she was begging everybody to go down and help search for this boy, Sebastian Rogers. And that's when we kind of started peeking under the hood in the case. We never had any anticipation that this would be such the story that it has become. I mean, we were thinking this was let's be honest. Most of us, when we started hearing about this, was certain that they were going to find him in a waterway somewhere, because we hear all too often, especially when it comes to autistic children, because we don't know these kids, and many people that don't have a child on the spectrum, you really just, you read in the newspaper how this autistic child got out, and unfortunately, a lake, or something like that. We hear that, and we don't know anything different, because we don't have any experience with autistic children, and don't have autism in our family, and have never really, we know that it exists, but we don't really have a clue about what it is. Oh, hey, Mr. E, it's nice to see you. I hope you're doing great today. So I think we all, when we first heard about this case, just thought this was going to be another sad story of a kid winding up in like a lake or a stream or something. I truly believe that's how and I think we were all just kind of, we knew it was going to be, we learned a lot in the Riley Strain case, especially about the buoyancy. I don't want to talk really too much about it. So we figured, especially like around day 8, 9, this was all turning to a different, I figured that they were waiting for, like they did with Riley, waiting for him to kind of surface. And so I was thinking, even though I was a little side-eye, I was still thinking that was pretty much what was going to happen. And I think very shortly on, we're like, wait a minute, something isn't right here. We got dogs that don't have scent. We've got, we need to start looking at this. And so we started going back to the interview. The green shirt interview is what most of us knew. I mean, I didn't even know about the very first interview until weeks later, right? I was relying directly on the green shirt interview. So I don't know, but I don't think any of us, if we were really looking back to those earlier days, I don't think any of us anticipated where we would be today. I don't think that was anticipated at all. But he was never found. And so most recently, the Friday prior to Sebastian's birthday, it seems to me that or no, it wasn't that. It was just recently. It was on Mr. and Mrs. E. We learned that there were 5 CPS reports. 5. And 1 still active. So there's only 4 reports allegedly that Mr. Rogers may have. But that really kind of took us all by surprise. But shortly after that, or right before that, the whole Texas Roadhouse became a pivotal hotbed. And again, things do look a little sus, but it can all be, in all fairness, in my mind, until more information surfaces, it could all be innocently explained, And I think we really missed the ball when it came down to the CPS reports. And what type of effect that must have had on Sebastian, right? We went from thinking that it was maybe an incident to maybe 2 incidences. And now we're flabbergasted that there were 5 separate incidences here. And how that must have, because we were so upset. Let's go back to those earlier days when everybody was acting like they were getting along. And they were trying to, show face. I'm talking about all 3 of them, Seth, the mom, the stepfather. And they were just starting to bicker. That was a big piece of cantaloupe. Sorry, guys. And they were just starting to bicker. And some stuff started pouring out of them, right? Remember? It was like, well, you better just keep your mouth shut, or I'm going to tell them this, and they're not going to want to help in this case anymore. You just try me. And then it went from that. Well, that was about the time that we found out that Sebastian was soiling himself. And many of us have done this a lot, and we've dealt with cases of abuse, SA and otherwise, you know, and we understand that that's how the body kind of, even when you can't say you're being abused, your body kind of has those telltale signs of abuse, whether physical, mental, or SA, right? So we were starting to say, wait a minute, you know, this is a 15-year-old boy. Why is all of a sudden he's having to do this, you know? But I don't think any of us could have really imagined 5 CPS reports. So reports involving Chris. What did I put on here? I got some history here. Oh, yes, and we should highlight the fact that we don't know the nature of these reports, okay? We don't know if it was just alleged verbal, physical, or psychological abuse. 1, 2 of those, or all 3 of those. We don't know. We have no known outcome in any of these reports, nor do I ever think that we ever will, unless there's something later down the road, you know, or something like that. We don't know what we don't know. We just know 5, that's high. At least that seems high to me. You know, I don't know about my audience. You guys are the ones that have children. I had 3 grandchildren here. I've never seen a CPS person before. I've never had to answer questions like that. I know that there's situations, because we had Mama Bear at Tenn, or wasn't that, you know, I don't know, we haven't seen her in a while, but she adopted children that had, you know, issues. And she told us about her daughter getting out of the house, and I think being in the, you know, almost drowning in the pool, and they had to call the ambulances, and of course her children are special needs, so she had to deal with the Department of Children and Family Services for that. So I mean, even when things just happen, it sounds like the Department of Children and Family Services come out and you have to deal with them. So it's not that I have an issue with the Department of Children and Family Services, you know, coming out, because everybody could have an emergency that warrants, you know, CPS doing an investigation, and I have no problem with that. And if the parent had no wrongdoing or could improve on a couple things, and that's really what it was about, then, you know, it's no big deal. Lesson learned, right? It was an accident. It wasn't intentional. Sometimes people do need a little bit of guidance. So I don't think we have such a problem with the CPS report open. I mean, some of you guys do, but there sometimes are explained away innocently, and not just necessarily innocently, like just, you know, an accident happened, a mistake was made, and like the child falling into the pool, and CPS having to be in, you know, I understand that. So we have to give a little grace when we do hear about reports, especially if we don't know too much about it. But in this particular situation, to find out we have 5 of all things, 5, that is to me seems like a lot, especially when you go from having really none, right? You didn't have any contact with the Department of Children and Family Services, and now all of a sudden, within a couple years, you have 5 different reports. I don't know about you, but that kind of, to me, signals that there were some major problems that were going on, or some earlier problems that were now getting to the point where they're erupting. But Seth said we would not sleep at night if we knew what was in the CPS reports. Yes, that is true, Dragonfly. I didn't hear Seth say that. Well, maybe he did say that in an interview, and I think that was in an earlier interview. Maybe it was the one on Court TV after my court. I know they were pretty raw. I was pretty raw, and then they had an interview on Court TV and replayed some of the stuff that made everybody so raw. So they were just extra raw that night, and I think he did say some things with that. And then of course, Tony was on Mr. and Mrs. E, and those conversations started coming out that this wasn't just 1 or 2. This was a total of 5, you know. Sebastian's disappearance should have been treated like a crime from day 1. until law enforcement knows truly what happened when these child calls come in, they should be treated like a crime. I know that, historically we have a lot of runaway juveniles. Okay? I get that. From an array of different things, from them having a temper tantrum because mommy and daddy won't let them do things, to them running away because they're being mistreated, right? So we have a variety of reasons why children historically run away from home, and I understand that there is a lot. There's a lot of these children that are found and brought home or brought to a safer place, but there are some that don't. We don't put policies and procedures in place for the many. We put the policies and procedure in place for the ones that are falling through the crack to prevent them from falling through the cracks. And I feel like sometimes law enforcement gets lax because it's not written in stone. They're not required to follow these things. They just should. You see what I'm saying? And when you're dealing with budgetary issues, which, many law enforcement departments, like I was at my meeting today and I found out we are, basically paying $8 million to fix a brand new state-of-the-art shelter, whatever. But we denied building a medical wing for our sheriff. Now, I'm sorry, but these are the kind of budgetary things. And then you got Board of County Commissioners that mismanage money, like paying $8 million for a pet shelter when it could have been done significantly less, while starting plans or starting to get the medical wing out at the jail done, which would save us so much money. Literally save us so much money. But these are the types of things that I'm talking about, and I truly believe that it's hard for them to budget something like that because you don't know how many kids you're going to have missing. Are you going to have 1? Are you going to have 2? Are you going to have 10? Are you going to have 20? And you got to turn all those into crime scenes. That seems a little daunting. It seems very wasteful. But had it been done, would it help? I don't know. Like, I really don't have a crystal ball. I just know that these are the best practices and procedures. And it really rubs me the wrong way if we don't have forensics done, because this boy disappeared without a trace. I mean, if you're going to pull that kind of manpower in and resources in literally on day one, to me that said that they took this case seriously. So if they took this case seriously, why not do everything they knew? LJ, too late for forensic testing. I want to answer that in a couple ways, okay? I want to answer that in a couple ways. First of all, I truly believe if there was a crime scene there, I don't think a layman person, even a cleaning crew, could clean some of that stuff up. It may be taken away by the naked eye, but with all the forensic tools, I truly believe that they'll be able to. Now, will it be what it should have been? Maybe not. Do I believe that there would still be the existence of something? Yeah, I do. I do. If everything's still the same and they didn't replace furniture, bedding, carpet, stuff like that, I mean, if they did replace that, then it's most likely gone and it'll be gone for forever. But if everything's still the same, I still believe that there will be some evidence there. But again, the potential of it not being there is still far greater. And waiting later doesn't outweigh the risk of losing critical evidence. And that's why it's so important to get it up front. But, harping on that, I think I think we're beating a dead horse when it comes to that. Yes, we need to bring it up until we know more. I pray to God they got critical evidence those first few days, but We just don't know. You know, we really just don't know. Oh, who's this? We got a member? Opal. Sis, thank you. God bless you. Welcome to this crazy crew we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the Insane Asylum. The Insane Asylum. If you have 5 CPS reports, that's danger zone in my opinion. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can understand, and I think we hit on this the other day. It's like, you know, I can understand all of a sudden, you got an autistic child, something happens in the household, boom, you got CPS up your crawl, okay? I can understand, you know, maybe that one wasn't told to Seth, you know, they, even if, whether or not it was proper protocol or procedure, I'm just saying, if it was minor, I can understand why they didn't want to upset the father, okay? Whether it's right or wrong or indifferent, I'm not getting into those arguments. I can just understand is all I'm saying. But by the second one, you know, I don't know. I think as a social worker, by the second, you know, visit, I would probably be starting to tune in a little bit more. You know? Tune in just a little bit. In my opinion, luminol would still work. I'm thinking so. I mean, there are things, you know, I'm sure that if they've been there long enough, they probably already researched it, you know, probably, who knows? Who knows? That's why it's so important to get it up front, because if, and I'm not saying, well, I have my opinions. I watch my opinions and what I say because we know that Seth is here, you know, he watches, and even if he's not here at the moment, he usually pops in, you know, on a replay or something just to see what's said. And I like to be, you know, I like to keep his hope up. And I pray to God that everything that I believe to be true is wrong. Because I don't want to be right. Who the heck wants to be right about this stuff? You know? I wish every single case that we get involved in that has family or somebody else potentially hurting another family. I want to be wrong about that. I hate that families can be so hurtful. Right? But something ain't jiving. And it just doesn't feel right at the pit of your stomach. And then you find out there's 5 CPS reports. That's a lot. That's a lot. And meanwhile, we're talking about these CPS reports, but the one thing we are all missing, and I think that this is because we're just so invested in the case, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. And none of us are really asking, how do these reports and what potentially could be in these reports impact Sebastian's well-being? And how have they impacted Sebastian's well-being? You know, I feel like sometimes we're so invested in the case, we don't even, oh, thanks, it's me, Jen. If you received your gifted membership, don't forget to tell it's me, Jen, thank you. We forget to think about the victim in all of this. And then you go back to those comments about, you know, using the restroom and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, we had those discussions. And then here we are 9 months later, right? And there's appears to be significant abuse. We don't know what kind, again. We don't know the nature of the reports. We don't know whether it was verbal, physical, psychological, and we have no known outcomes. But early on, we definitely know that it was brought up about his bathroom. And we all believed that something had to be going on inside that home. And 9 months later, we find out our instinct and our logic and our experience in other cases was correct. It was correct. But Sebastian had to go through whatever he had to go through to get those reports. And we definitely, aw, thank you, Lisa B. And we definitely know at least one impact on him that this stuff had. And I truly believe that's exactly why he was having restroom issues. We felt it in our gut. We've known it for a while, but we really didn't have anything corroborating that. Now we do. We have 5 CPS reports. We don't know what's in them. But knowing that everybody, like the mom and the stepdad, were definitely having these issues to the point that they've had several discussions about it publicly. And then we hear this. And then we learn potentially from Justin for All that they blamed Seth for all of this. For all of this. These people. There's something wrong. Just saying, there's something wrong. I think the question on all of our minds is, will these reports really lead to anything formal? Will it lead to a formal investigation into the allegations, especially in absence of Sebastian? Who can attest to these statements now? Who would be able to attest to these statements now? I know to date we don't know anything with these CPS reports, and I don't think we will. There's a lot of child protection laws out there, child privacy laws. So it is possible we may never truly know the findings of what's in these reports. I think now we're going to be, and we're going to be including you because this is kind of where I'm going to start picking y'all's brain. Abuse issues, in my opinion, it makes me sick. Gaslighters always blame the victim and who the victim feels safe with, which is Seth. Exactly. Exactly. And as a matter of fact, that is one thing that I remember. One of the first things that were ever said out of those reports is I remember Seth coming out and he was really upset once he got them. He had to get an attorney and fight like heck to get them. And when he got him, I remember the only thing he would comment at that early days is that my son stated the only place he feels safe is at my house. And I remember that broke his heart. I remember that. And this was months ago. That broke my heart. So now I'm going to be including y'all into the discussion a little bit. So get your fingers ready, but don't blow up the chat too bad. Okay? Don't make me slow the chat. I'll do it if I got to. Don't make me slow the chat. Oh, I'm eating cantaloupe. I got a fresh cantaloupe and some pineapple. And I cut it all down and mixed it all up. Nothing beats fresh. Because even at the stores, when you have it pre-cut, I don't care what you do. You probably need to wash it because I'm pretty sure they put a preservative over it. You know, I like to cut it myself. I like to, yep. Doesn't take that long at all. I have the old time wooden chairs that have the little, you know, spots on both sides of them that kind of raise up from the back. And so I just put a plastic bag there and I got a cut board on my table and I just cut the cantaloupe in half and clean out, you know, all the seeds and stuff out of it. And I just, you know, put it in those little slices and then I just take my knife and I just take the cantaloupe peel right off, chop it up, throw it in there. Good, 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 good. If it's fresh, it's for me. I think she sold him. You know, it's so hard. Everybody, I don't know. You know, that's so hard for me to wrap my head around because, you know, I think of people as being, even as abnormal as their behavior has been, they before all of this, they were semi-normal, okay? They're not complete, you know, just crazy people. How do you go about doing that for the normal person? Okay, I just want to play the tape through because this is where I get hung up on all the time. Where do we go to set? I'm gonna probably get the channel terminated. I said, where do you go to sell, you know, KIDSs? Like I mean, like I don't want to know, but I just want to know, where do you begin the research? I'm not making light of it, but it just seems so far-fetched because you just can't go on, you know, sellakid.com. You know, so I'm just, it's not like I'm asking to know because I don't want it. If you do know, please don't put it in the chat. I don't need to inspire any other wackadoo, you know, whatever. But for conversation's sake, you know, when it comes to that, like, how do you do it? And I don't think a normal person that doesn't really have a role online would know how to do that. You know, I would think that you would be terrified of getting caught. And I just don't know how people would overcome that. So that is where I think in order to get my mind changed, you're going to have to answer those for me, which you can do at bullhornbetty.com, just to let you know. Yes, and the case does drive me absolutely bonkers. It's because I just feel in the pit of my, we just know something's not right here. Okay, kids just don't vanish. They just don't vanish. No sightings, not on any security cameras, no dog hits. We know what we know. And we don't know what we don't know. But we all know. Evidence or no evidence, this doesn't smell right, right? It doesn't pass the smell test. At very minimum, it doesn't pass the smell test. And then you couple in 5 CPS reports. And it really doesn't pass the smell test. Then you look at the histories of both of the mom and the stepfather, and you get the EBGBs. Because let's face it, there are many people out there, and it's been well known, not that everybody is, but there are some that have been abused that become the abuser. And I'm sorry, it just seems to me everything just came colliding together, and I don't know what that collision looked like. Is it just removing him from the household, or is it more nefarious or deep-seated? You know? Okay, so here's what we're going to kind of be discussing. Let's examine the dynamic between Sebastian and his mom. And then we'll incorporate stepdad in there. And we're going to be looking at a lot of stuff here. So what we've learned, at least from Seth's eyes, right? At least from Seth's eyes, when they were really happy that she got pregnant with Sebastian. When Sebastian came, there were some things that were probably noticeable up front. If I recall correctly, I believe his father, when he interviewed with me, stated that his child was supposed to be sleeping and was up for like 16 to 18 hours a day. And he just happened to notice, you know, obviously noticed that. And that was the beginning of finding out that there were some disabilities that Sebastian had. Then we realized that the mom ran off to the Navy. Now, whether she had to go to the Navy to support the family, to get him the best health care possible, either way, we know she ran off to the Navy for the first parts of his life. Oh, wow, I missed a whole bunch of you guys. Sorry, I just glossed over a lot of you. Samantha says, I remember watching J for J, a while back, she was showing a video of Sebastian's house. 2 people grabbed. That was the ruckus video. That was not what it was. That was really shadows, because I was out there, and it wasn't light. The light wasn't coming through the yard. The light was actually in the garage, and what you were seeing is the trees in front of that light on the camera. I went out there, I looked at it, and that's when I found out that that's what it was. I didn't know what it was either. But the lights were on the inside of the garage. So if there was no lights on the outside of the garage, then there's no shadows that could have been out there moving, because the light source was from inside the garage. So the dynamic between, okay, so let's talk about this. So Sebastian and Katie, their relationship, it didn't seem to be very nurturing. It didn't seem to be very nurturing. But, you know, she's a mom. She fought for her son. She got custody of her son predominantly, right? It was shared custody. It was joint custody. It was not sole custody. And she was the primary caregiver. So we can't eliminate that she loves her son, okay? She was the primary caregiver. She's been the primary caregiver for Sebastian for at least the last 8 years. But you have to look at, and I'm not going to touch on anything negative, but she doesn't herself, she did not have a good nurturing relationship with her own mother, and those things, and that's all I'm going to say. So I don't want anybody, you know, getting, I don't want to touch anything. I just want to say that she didn't have a good nurturing relationship with her mother, and I think she lacked that in her own motherhood, if that made sense to you. And so I think that was, she didn't know what that nurturing looked like, okay? And I think that stress, I think she, you know, she loves her son, but I think also, just in my opinion, this is just, I got no doctor degree to say this, I'm just saying my opinion. I believe with the stepfather, Chris, being in there constantly harping on her about her son, you know, 8 years of that. 8 years of that. I think she just started resenting Sebastian. You know, I really do. I don't think it started out that way. I truly don't. I know that there's a lot of layers to this, you know, especially with that woman. But I don't think it ever started out that way. I just think it became that way over time because of the nonstop harping. She brainwashed. Yeah, you know, it's kind of like, it is kind of like that, you know? I can almost hear it now. Like, I can literally hear it in the back of my head in his voice. In his voice. He could help it if he really wanted to. If he just tried. He's not even trying. Like, I can literally hear that in the back of my head right now in his voice. I just truly believe at some point the family dynamic has shifted. His voice gives me PTSD. Well, snacks give me mine. It's me, Jen, just FYI. And hindsight says, in my opinion, CP didn't show who he really was until year 2 or 3. That would be, I have to agree, because we've, there it is, Jen. See, I knew. Hindsight, I have to agree with you, because in these situations, the manipulator or the narcissist would be in that facade until they you know, somebody started seeing them as faultied or fractured, or start seeing their flaws, right? And then as they start seeing their flaws, they start getting nastier and a little nastier, you know? It's definitely not. We all know abusive situations don't just happen overnight. It's a progressive situation. And I think that this is much like that, a progressive situation. I believe it's the absolute truth what Betty just said, that KP, as a result of CP's constant nagging, ended up resenting Sebastian in order to prove to CP that she was being loyal to him. I don't, I think, I, I still think there's a snapping mechanism in here. And I think the loyalty in part was the opposite, actually. So we'll see how this all goes. And that's when she should have left money or not, but military or not, didn't leave. That's my issue with her. Yes, she did leave. I want to bite. I know, it's so good. It's hard not to eat it. It's me, Jen says snacks. There's mine right there. Had it delivered and chopped it up by hand. It goes back to, in my opinion, someone saying a long time ago, it was actually our Lisa B. Always that believed that he was being punished into normalcy. Hey TL, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. She's a narcissist too. I believe there are two peas in a pod. I think I've said that on multiple occasions. And I think that was further solidified with our interview with Yeda. You know, just some, past history. So that's really it. And I think it's important to note that their behavior at the beginning of his disappearance, all the way up, I want to say until almost May, has been very concerning for many people, with the multiple inconsistencies and the constant. If you actually went back and looked at social media before their interviews, you actually see them filling in what people are complaining about. And when you start filling in the timeline, that's how it gets so choppy, is because you're just trying to tell whatever they can say about this point right now. But when you look back on it, it's just going do 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 do. It doesn't make sense. What else do I got on my list? Ooh, this is a good one. What type of stressors in the household, such as, custody disputes, parental squabbles, the abuse, or other household stressors? What kind of stressors are we looking at in this household? Let's list some of the stressors. Money. Money's always a stressor. And you know what, I did kind of feel like something, I said this at the very beginning of this case, is I felt like they were financially overextended. Not that they didn't have money at the end of the month or anything like that. It's just the amount of money that they made versus all their monthly expenses didn't really give them a whole lot of padding at the end of the month, in my opinion, based on everything I know. Not a lot. And it seems like everything started happening after they got the new home. Their previous home, I think, was only $200,000 or maybe up to $300,000, something like that, before they got into this home. And this is 100% loan, okay? That means that everything is basically covered in the loan, that you just have to pay. You don't have to pay like, you have to pay like an earnest money deposit, but I think your closing costs are minimal. I think it's just several $1,000s, and everything is built into the loan. Well, when you have a $700,000 loan, even at 6%, is quite the monthly payment. You know what I'm saying? It is quite the monthly payment. And then you add a really nice expensive truck, a really nice expensive SUV, a really nice motorcycle, and a really nice camper, fifth wheel. You know, we don't know if they have monthly payments on all of these things, but they're nice. It looks like they would have monthly payments on all of them. You're talking about a lot of freaking money every month just in those items. Never mind the ungodly amount of money it cost for that truck to drive 3 hours one way and 3 hours back in a diesel. I don't even want to know what the how much money that cost. I'd have to think it's like $100 or more. I don't know. Keeping up with the neighbors isn't cheap. You're right. But that's previous house was where in Gallatin? I think so. I don't know what. I know it was off of Remington, but I don't know their city limits and stuff like that. That's all I know. And I know most of the family has owned that house. Most of their family has owned the house. I don't know if it's out of the family's hands now or if it's back into another family, but it seemed like the mom owned it at one time. Both sisters have owned it. They've owned it. It seems like it was a family house just passed from person to person. So I don't know. My thesis is KB didn't want to give S to SR and couldn't keep him, and she thought she was doing a good thing. Yeah. I mean, I know that he can, this is a tough one, and it angers me because we've heard the stepfather say so many times that we're never going to find him. And that's what has me so deeply and troubled. Not just concerned, deeply concerned, but troubled. Very much troubled because of that. It didn't appear that Sebastian and his stepfather had a very good relationship at all. It sounded like Chris took this whole I'm in charge and I'm strict entirely too far with an autistic child. That man should never be around a freaking child, ever. Ever. He does not have what it takes. That's for sure. I don't think I want to ask that. I think that's going to be a show in and of itself right there. So I'm going to move past that one. We learned on Mr. and Mrs. E. I think it was Mr. and Mrs. E. If you guys are still in the chat, didn't you guys do the one on, who did the, show on the likelihood, the 20% more likely, if they're abused, they're more likely to be abused by a paternal parent or family, something like that. I thought it was like 20% higher if I got it accurate, but I can't remember. But I was trying to look in, like they are doing scientific, I don't know if people know this, and they have. I just read a couple of published studies. And they've done studies on the likeliness of abuse by children with ADHD and other ailments on the spectrum. Lisa says she didn't want to pay child support to Seth. In my opinion, they already were stretched thin with child support to Nina and house payments. And we keep forgetting about Nina. You were right. You're right. They should have paid child support to, they should have to pay child support to, with Seth. Them hiding Sebastian and all their lawsuits getting expensive for them, in my opinion. I have to think that, well, having an attorney out of state, that's probably, because he's got to have an attorney, I'm certain, in New Mexico. So he's been paying an attorney. So that's another expense. they may very well be hurting financially. And we always thought it was a very a real possibility that they were concerned about child support payments to Seth. I mean, we know the one reason why the stepfather was going for his daughter was because he didn't want to pay his ex-wife money. She's a gold digger, remember? Samantha says, I'm starting to think Sebastian Rogers never made it home right after the Texas Roadhouse. I know I've got about, I don't know, I think I've got about, I don't know if it's a 50-50 split, but I know we do have a lot of people in here that don't believe that he made it home from the Roadhouse, and we have a lot of people here that do think he made it home from the Roadhouse. I believe he made it home, but and like I've said for the last several months, the reasons why, and it really does kind of come down to the shoes and the car seen on the outside of their house at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's what makes me believe he made it home. I believe there is a life insurance policy on him, and I believe it's through Seth's work, possibly, that he gets through the sheriff's department or whatever. I feel like I've heard that before. I think we might have asked that in the interview, but I know that it's been stated on somebody, and I believe it was stated on an interview Seth did on, I don't think I asked him that question, so I would have had to seen it on another interview by somebody else. I wonder what KP and CP stress level were. She had work, school, marriage issue, paying bills, etc. CPS reports, trying to find out where Sebastian's going to live. That's a lot. Girl, Mom, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It is absolutely a lot. And then, of course, we have the abuse allegations, which leads to the unsafe environment, which most likely led to his incontinent issues. And I do believe that that had a negative effect, an obvious negative effect on Sebastian, you know? And it was like every time he turned around, like one of the things I think we started noticing after so many interviews were done and going back through them is how no matter what interview they were on, it seemed like the stepfather always talked down about Sebastian. Do you guys remember that? If you guys remember that, put a 1 in the chat. Every time we listened to it seemed like no matter what, it's like he always had to say something negative about this young man. But we didn't really notice it. I mean, we kind of did here and there, but it was like once we started listening to them back to back, the only time he ever said anything positive about Sebastian, and I almost remember it, it's like ingrained in my brain, is that he's a great chess player. That's the only thing that man has ever been proud of that boy for. He would win a grown man against a grown man. It was like that was Chris's highest achievement for Sebastian, was that he played chess well. I think you need to talk to Nina before you return to court. It's very important. Well, I have no way of getting a hold of her. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I can without my attorney. My attorney would probably have to get a hold of her. I don't know if because I don't know how all that works. I 100% Tink says Sebastian is a way better man than CPL will ever be. I agree 100%. So we also observed the stepfather's behavior on multiple channels. We've observed him threatening a PI. We observed him threatening the life of the biological father, Seth Rogers. We also have watched him discourage searchers. And we've also heard with him, as well as the mother, showing a lack of urgency, which I think reached deep. Do you think they were restricting food? I don't know. I don't even want to speculate on that. Because I heard it's possible both ways. I don't know if it is. I mean, it is common from what I hear from parents for the child to get hungry at night. You know, they have hard time sleeping. They, you know, snack. So I've heard that. I've heard that they get up in the, you know, there are some that wake up that don't go to sleep and they're hungry. You know, they like to snack on things at night. I've heard that multiple times. It does bother some, because we've heard in many cases of autism, some of the reasons why parents are arrested and stuff like that is because they withhold food. They lock the cabinets because when they're sleeping, their child is out of control in the cupboards, eating anything and everything they can put down their hatch. So I don't know the answer to that, whether they have, but it didn't look like they ate a whole lot of food at a restaurant. You know, what was that all about? I don't know. I really don't know. I think we need to look at the importance also of behavioral analysis when assessing the roles of Chris, Katie, you know, the step grandparents, even Seth, when it comes to Sebastian's case. And what does, you know, behavioral analysis is important in crime cases because it helps law enforcement identify the likely offender and understand the crime. I did a little research on that. So here's some of the highlights of behavioral analysis. It narrows suspect pool. It helps understanding motivation, educating others, improving investigation, and providing closure. Behavioral analysis can help solve crimes and provide closure to the victims' families and friends. Behavioral analysis uses a variety of techniques to analyze crime scenes, including criminal investigation analysis and analyzing the crime scene, including the location, time of day, nature of victim. Interview strategy, using behavioral principles, psychology, and science-based methods to prepare for, conduct, and analyze interviews. Threat assessment, using fact-based method to determine if an individual is moving toward an attack. We also have things like parental squabbles. We have noticed the parental squabbles early on in this case. Them trying, we didn't realize that it dated all the way back to October 2022 until just recently. But we all understood that just recently the stepfather was making a big push for Seth to take full custody of Sebastian, and he was supposed to get him in just a few months, right? In just a few months. He was going to go live with Seth. Seth, we learned that in 2022 he started making arrangements, or excuse me, was it 20? Yeah, I think it was 2022. He started making the arrangements for his son to come stay with him, signed up for the online class. It took 14 months rather, for the online classing to be approved. And so he had just recently received approval right before Sebastian disappeared. A lot of their frustration was over limited online school access for Sebastian, so he could not get custody earlier, and so that was, I think, some squabbles there. It sounded like Chris Proudfoot was the gatekeeper between the two of them, so to speak. At times it sounded like that's Now, how true that is, I think they've all acknowledged that there were still some deep-seated issues between Seth and Katie. And so here's some questions I've got. Here's some questions that I have for the audience. And I would like your opinion. How do multiple CPS reports affect the urgency and credibility of the missing child's investigation? So I would think it would, if you believe it's more urgent, how would I want to ask this in chat? Hold your buttons. Hold your buttons. How do I want to ask this? Because I typed it, but I didn't put it in a yes or no format. I put it into an open communication format, and we need a yes or no format on these. I don't know why I did that. I think because I was thinking of open discussion. I'd like to openly discuss this with you, but it makes it really hard because I don't want to read 1,000 million gajillion answers. So how do multiple CPS reports affect the urgency? Do you think multiple CPS reports affect the urgency of finding Sebastian? I still don't like the way that question is. I might have to rewrite my question. Well, here's a good one. What role should public pressure play in cases where family members are suspects? Okay, so you guys did answer that. Okay, thank you. This is I'm gonna actually ask this one. I've got 3 questions here, but I think I'm just gonna focus on this next one. We'll get the other 2 another time. Let me rewrite those. But I do want because you know a lot of the stuff we do here, we do apply pressure just by this channel. Being involved the way we do have the ability to apply a little pressure here. Through pressure campaigns. It's, you know, people that have been on with this show for a long time know what we do and how we do it in part. And we use our platform in times to pressure families. We use our platform in times to pressure law enforcement. And we do that by speaking our mind and talking about things that are uncomfortable to talk about that provoke responses. That's the type of pressure. We did it in Gabby Petito when the attorney didn't want to speak. By our work out in front of that house, he was telling media, answering media's questions. So he was actually answering our questions through the media. It was really, really one of the most bizarre things I think I've ever dealt with in my life. But it provoked a response. It got the attorney talking. It got the, the working with. I mean, the law enforcement was reading this. Law enforcement was able to have it. They were having no contact with law enforcement, and we got the freaking attorney speaking to the media. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, well-orchestrated situation. So that was the public pressure we played in Gabby. What role should public pressure play in cases where family members are a suspect? Where family members are a suspect. Let me go up here. Public pressure means people are passionate about what is happening. That's true. The CPS reports should have been very high priority at the time. I agree with that as well. I think a good LE, if looking at all the information at the start, shouldn't need public pressure, not in this case. However, public pressure is good and important in my opinion. Public pressure is intense at times. I will tell you that. It is intense at times. And I definitely behoove any law enforcement across this country, if they have a high-profile case, they have to have a public relations, because these things can go wild. They end up being more toxic than helpful. When you have public relations, it calms the water and people are working like a well-oiled machine. When you fail to have that public relations, things get out of control on social media, and they get out of control very quickly. So I would definitely, with everything I've known and I've experienced over the years, it is very critical and very crucial that law enforcement across this country have a public relations plan in case of a high profile case. They shouldn't wait until a high profile case falls in their lap before they make a plan. They should have a plan prepared before that day ever comes. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Okay, failing to plan is planning to fail, and we don't want our law enforcement doing that. This is hard for me because I'm a little biased on this question. I'm Bullhorn Betty, right? you don't want me kicking my feet up and staying a while out front of your house, you know. But I'll do whatever it takes to advocate for these cases. We've done very good work in many of these cases. There was a few, including this one, that I did not work well with law enforcement. But for the majority of the cases, we do work well with law enforcement. We worked well with law enforcement even out in Chatham County. What changed is when the hate channels got a hold of it and started sending people out there for disruption. Started blowing up the phones at the local police department for no good purpose than to try to shut something lawful and legal down and cause problems in a case that didn't need any additional problems. They did it for content and for money, while pointing the fingers saying that we're doing it for content and money. When we got out there, not one of our channels were monetized covering that case. Not one. And these lowlives were stealing our content on monetized channels. They fail to tell you the truth. That's the problem. They failed to tell you the truth. So, obviously, we're not going to give our content up for free, right? And so we ended up turning our channels on to monetize, and we wanted people to show them you're being shut down, and that's what pissed them off. Next thing you know, you got clowns showing up there. He's a 14-month-old baby. And they tried to blame us for that. Ain't nobody order the clown but those hate channels. Ain't nobody disrespect that child but them hate channels. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. I can tell you it wasn't Bullhorn Betty that sent out a fucking clown. Excuse my language. I think that was the most disrespectful thing anybody could ever do to a deceased 14-month-old baby. 20-month-old baby. So the next question are there gaps in child protective service system that leave children vulnerable in situations like Sebastian? And the answer for me is absolutely. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell for this show. Hey, Betty and Delilah, keep up the good work. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. But I really do think that we're missing the boat. We're focusing on something that could potentially be a nothing burger, like the green hoodie situation there. I know it's a little saucy and stuff like that, but I really do believe people need to be raising the roof over these CPS reports. I just do. I think these CPS reports and the potential for child abuse inside this home, I think is really more nuts and bolts related to the Sebastian Rogers case than, some potential homeless person asking for some change. We don't know who that person is, and we're putting a lot of time in that person and not trying to find more information about what was going on behind the scenes with this child. And I think that really should be the primary focus. I think keeping Sebastian top of mind is super, super huge as well. So we've got to keep him top of mind and thinking of ways to locate him and bring him home. And that's probably going to take a lot of thinking outside the box and really looking into things that maybe we haven't looked into before. What are other areas that we could be looking into? Who knows Tennessee? What kind of areas are in Tennessee? Maybe we need to break it down by, mountain, flat, water. Maybe we need to do something like that and really start color coding the freaking map in Sumner County in the state of Tennessee and see what we come up with. But until I get more information on Green Hoodie Guy, and it's going to be too difficult. I think we need a little more information before we invest any more time in there. That's all I'm saying. We have a lot of people on these platforms that do great work, and I just think, and on my humble opinion, we need to focus on, activities that are going to produce some type of result or lead. And I feel a little bit that it's not a red herring. I don't want to put that out there because I think this is important information, but I just think we need to have a little more information before we start investing too much time and research into locating and really sleuthing for what this shirt could be or what the sweatshirt could be and who it could be. That's all I'm saying. So that's why I wanted to focus on these CPS reports, because I think this is bombshell information along with the whole October 2022 trying to get rid of Sebastian, has been trying to get rid of Sebastian since. These things are critical information, in my opinion, to the case. We don't know about this green hoodie person, or looking for the waiter, or we just don't know. They could be so innocent, right? Those actions could be so innocent, and we're making a big deal and wasting days and days and days while not focusing on critical things that might lead to helpful tips that might help resolve some of this stuff. So I will post flyers of him. Okay. In my opinion, I think KP taking pictures of Sebastian is relevant. I do too. But we have that. But we can't pinpoint what relevance it would have. And even if we did determine that it does have relevance conclusively, relevance of what? Where is it leading us? We don't have access to her phone. We don't have access to her call log. We don't know where these photos are. I mean, in my humble opinion, all we're going to be doing is spinning our wheels, because we don't have the basic information needed to make an assessment on any of that. That's where they can build circumstance, in my opinion. Possibly. I really don't believe GHG had anything to do with Sebastian going missing. But we don't know what we don't know. I think personally it's a waste of time. Just throwing that out there. I personally think at this point it's a waste of time, and I think getting back to more productive conversations would be beneficial, because I think by focusing on that, if it has nothing to do with anything, they're sitting back not sweating anything, because we're all in left field. You know what I'm saying? I think a few people probably need to stay, be in left field talking about it, but we need to be staying focused. I mean, there's so many different cases that have some similarities, from Gabriel Fernandez, the West, the Wells, even John Bonet, when it comes to the Sebastian Rogers case. I feel like we can, that we have a lot of things that aren't right in this case. We have a lot of experience and cases to look back on that we also had these types of feelings with as well. And I really think that something happened. You guys know my theory behind it, even though my audience doesn't 100% agree with my opinion. We do have a split, in all fairness, we do have a split over here of, how many people think that he's healthy and happy, and how many people think, bad. So we do have a healthy split on this channel, on my channel, even though I believe the way I believe. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm talking to you guys. And then we also have Seth that visits and says hi here and there. And, you know, this has got to be extremely difficult. So I try to be very sensitive to the way I explain things on my channel when it comes to a son, because at the end of the day, this is his life. This is his child. I can't even imagine how hard this must be. But I know one thing: I need him to have hope. I need him to have strength. You know, because there's going to be more bumpy roads down the road. It happens in every single case I touch, you know, and I say the same exact thing to him that I said to Jennifer Santinello. You know, keep your body healthy, get as much sleep as you can, and keep your strength. You can't be falling apart when you need to be the strongest you've ever been. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. I give that same speech to every single family I speak to, you know, because it's the truth. Anyways, guys, thank you all for coming in. Thank you all for participating in this discussion topic. I know it just really is. I feel like we're missing something here. I feel like we're so focused on this green hoodie guy that we're missing some incredibly important information. I truly believe that. And I think that this stuff needs to be dived into. I'd rather see people, you know, going down this avenue than wasting a whole bunch of time going down another one. That's all. That's all. All right, guys, thanks so much. God bless each and every one of you. Don't forget to rock it out with your coffee beans out. Until next time. I don't even know what to say. My brain is so fried. So we're just going to say goodnight. I love you guys. Have a great day. And be safe and be kind to one another. Bah humbug. All right, bah humbug. Oh, Gypsy, I got your email. I'm trying to decide. I'll respond back, but I think tomorrow would be a great time. Tomorrow afternoon. So I'll get with you through email, and we'll schedule a time. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but I'm absolutely sure it'll be fun. So can't wait to chat with you tomorrow. Guys, I'll be making a thumbnail, and then we will just know tomorrow afternoon we will be having a live here with an interview with Gypsy. Yay! We get to learn who Gypsy is. And she's part of our family, so we were going to definitely give her a big warm welcome. Anyways, guys, I'll see you later. Take care and good night.